So, without further ado, here it is. This is the new trigger release from Apex Tactical Specialties. The name is incredibly long. It is the flat-faced forward-sitting trigger kit. I know, that is a heck of a mouthful, but this is what they decided to go with. So we're going to have to come up with some sort of awesome acronym to call this, like the FISC or something like that. But I'm sure over time somebody will develop some kind of cool little, buzz name for it, and that'll be the end of it. So here is what we currently have. We've got some very interesting things going into this gun. We've got an overview that I'm going to post separately from this of everything that comes in the kit. I'll also be doing an installation video when time allows. But for now, let's just go over the trigger characteristics. If you saw the video that I posted yesterday, we've got our standard duty carry action kit. You can compare the two. With this one, we're going to go ahead and show you why this trigger is as awesome as it is. And I hate to say this because I'm not really one to go wow, but wow, this trigger is cool. So let's dive into it and let's talk a little bit about what this does for you. So a couple of things to note on this trigger right from the outset, because I just want to be ultra clear in what this is and what this isn't. This trigger was designed to be a flat face trigger instead of the curved articulated trigger on the Smith and Wesson M&P. Randy currently has, and the rest of the crew at Apex Tactical, they currently have a forward-sitting trigger kit, which is a metal trigger, which is a curved face trigger that does away with the articulated trigger bow on the factory gun and provides the end user with a more stable trigger press environment. And what I mean by that is, as I discussed in the duty carry action kit, that hinging motion that you get with the factory trigger, because it's articulated, is gone. What you essentially have is a trigger now that you can truly press straight to the rear. Now, their forward-sitting trigger kit, the standard curved trigger bow, aluminum trigger bow, accomplishes the same objective, but this does it in a very different way. The current theme amongst competition shooters and guys that are running thumb safeties on their guns is that you can run a pretty light trigger, like in the 3-pound range, and really get away with it, because you have to make a conscious decision to remove that safety upon presentation in order to shoot. So let me just preface this by saying that the majority of my discussion will be centered around thumb safety guns and guys that are using these in competition, because from a carry standpoint, I would have no problem carrying this trigger with the thumb safety on it. Truth be told, I would really honestly have no problem carrying this, just as it is without a thumb safety, but it has a very short trigger throw, and this particular gun right here is set up at about 3.5 pounds, and that's a little bit on the lighter side for carry. So you've got to kind of assess what you're comfortable with. For the average Joe out there, I really wouldn't just go ahead and take what you've got, i.e. this trigger kit, throw it in a gun, throw it in your pants, and then roll around with it. You obviously need to be very well trained. You obviously need great trigger discipline, and you just simply need to be aware. And what I mean by that is that even with a 5.5-pound trigger, if you're not paying attention, you're going to set it off if there's an obstruction in the trigger guard. If you continue to holster and there's an obstruction in the trigger guard, 5.5 pounds really isn't that much. The only real way to get around that is to have a hammer that you essentially put your thumb over when you're going to reholster. Simply because you can actually feel the hammer moving if there's a trigger guard obstruction and there's something on the trigger. Even under stress, nobody knows what you're going to do. Nobody knows how well you're trained. And quite frankly, even with both of those things, a hammer-fired gun and a nice 5.5, 6, 7, 8 pound trigger, you could still very well push through that resistance and blow a nice hole through your leg. So from a safety standpoint, that's up to you. From a pure performance standpoint, this trigger certainly performs, and it offers quite a bit in the way of that. So let's go ahead and make sure the gun is clear. I want to show you guys the actual trigger throw. Again, I'm not really a guy that's going to go wow and say holy crap, but wow, holy crap, because this really is that impressive. So let's go ahead, clear this sucker, and we're going to give this a nice press. Now, this is your pre-travel. The bladed trigger safety comes out of the way. This is your pre-travel. I'm at the wall right now, and we're going to go ahead and just simply press and the gun goes off. There's zero creep. You can see just a little bit of tension as the trigger just kind of moves and then releases the striker. But that's your trigger weight right there. So again, we're going to go through our pre-travel. We're at the wall right here, and then we're just going to go ahead and press. This trigger is so glass-like, it's unbelievable. I'm seriously impressed with this trigger right now, with this gun as it's set up. It's very, very, very easy to dry fire. Again, we've got a 3.5 pound trigger on this one. It's very easy to dry fire. It's very easy to actually present the gun and shoot at speed. Now, when I say at speed, I just mean dry fire drills. I have zero live fire rounds on this gun at the time of this video, simply because I just got the trigger kit, I just installed it. So just to let you guys know, I have not actually shot this yet. So again, my impressions are based upon dry firing alone, running through a series of dry fire practice drills that I do out of the holster. And this thing is very easy to manipulate. Very, very, very easy to manipulate. Now, a couple of things to note. The guns, or this trigger, was designed to work with a competition spring kit that Randy and the rest of the Apex crew currently has on the market. Now, what's really cool about this particular trigger and the geometry behind it is that they're getting pulls as low as 1 pound 6 ounces with the competition spring kit and a combination of springs on the inside. That's insane. To have a reliable gun at that trigger weight, we're talking usually, high dollar 2011s. The CZ Tactical Sports can be made to go that low. Off the top of my head, most double action, single action guns are not going to be able to go that low because they start becoming dangerous. The Sear geometry on a 1911 can be worked over quite a bit to allow you to get those glass-like, super light pulls. It's not something that I'm particularly interested in, but it may be something that I futz around with in the future just to see what this can do. Again, a lot of limited shooters, guys that are shooting limited guns, high dollar 2011s, are really loving this because, man, you can get triggers super light on those things. And for people that are interested in limited guns that can really be tuned to be light, if you're running an M&P, this trigger is where it's at. The geometry of it is going to allow you to get ridiculously low in pull weight. Now, one other thing that I want to say. A lot of people might look at this and be like, well, they already have a metal trigger on the market. What's the deal with this one? Like, why was this one released? And the answer is really simple. The more we shoot, the more we realize that a proper prep and press is awesome. But if you ever look at anyone's finger at speed, high slow motion video, very high FPS frame rates, you will see that shooter trying to get their firing finger, their index finger, ahead of the cycle speed of the slide. Now, mechanically, it's impossible. No human has that kind of reaction time. The guns just simply cycle faster than we are able to do that. But you will always see that when those sights settle, when the gun returns to battery, in that microsecond, you will see the end user's finger come slightly off the face of the trigger and then come back. Now, the reason why this kind of trigger excels in that kind of environment is because it is flat, which means that when you come in, you can do whatever you have to do wherever you need to do it on the face of this trigger to get it to go off. As we all know, the higher you go on the trigger, the less leverage you have, which means the heavier the pull weight is going to be. The lower you get on the trigger, the more leverage you have, which means the lighter the pull weight is going to be. So on a straight flat face trigger, whether you're here or here or here or here, you have pretty much the same trigger press every time. And that is very advantageous for guys that are specifically looking to shoot their guns fast and accurately. So again, a design of a flat face trigger is great. I ran my 1911s with the 10.8 Performance flat triggers. I love them. They've got an internal over travel stop. Those things are fantastic. Really dig it. This trigger to me is in the same vein. It is a true flat face trigger on a striker fired gun. To the best of my knowledge, nobody out there is doing anything like this. This is the first product of its kind for pretty much any plastic gun. Most people have, tons of people have aftermarket triggers for Glocks, for M&Ps, for the XDs, XDMs, but nobody has a flat face trigger like this that actually has an integrated over travel stop. This trigger was designed with intent, and they designed it around a system that they know very, very, very well. Randy and Scott over there, the engineers at Apex Tactical, know their shit, and they do not mess around. Because what you can see here is on the actual back end, the ass end of the trigger, you have a built-in over travel stop. So when they designed this throw, everything was by intent, whereas on a Glock, for example, most of those triggers, and they say it's a feature, they allow you to adjust your pre-travel and over-travel. That's all great, but most of that stuff is done by set screws. Jury's still out as to whether or not, everybody trusts set screws. Some people do, some people don't. Personally, if I could have a trigger that doesn't have set screws in it, I would much prefer that because, again, like Ron Popeil said, for that ridiculous microwave or whatever it was that he used to sell, you set it and you forget it. And that's really the way that I like to handle most of my guns. I have used set screws in the past on my Glocks. It is what it is. Never had any problems, but I could. So for peace of mind, I would much prefer something like this. Now, the last thing that I will say about my trigger impressions on this, actually there's two things that I want to do. Let's go ahead and demonstrate the reset. All right, so we're going to go ahead and break the shot for all you guys out there that are interested in seeing what it's all about. Check out this amount of travel. I mean, it is like beyond nil. There is just nothing going on here. Boom. I mean, that has got to be a 1/16 of an inch travel. That is just beyond short. So let's go ahead and rack it. And now we're going to go ahead and check out that reset. I mean, holy crap. Again, remember guys, this trigger has no updated trigger bar or slide stop in it. So the reset is not as good as it could be. But given what we have, I'm beyond pleased. I mean, if I short stroke this thing, I'm pretty much going to retire my guns and quit. I'm going to stop shooting because I don't really believe that this thing is something that you can actually short stroke. It's got to be really hard. Now, the last thing that I want to say, okay, is, and this is just one observation from doing the install, this gun, when it had the hinge trigger, due to where the trigger would break, had a large backstrap on it. I had to go to a medium to be able to use this trigger effectively, or at least to dry fire it effectively. I really needed to change and adjust the length of pull, so to speak, in order to get my finger where I wanted it, which honestly is no big deal because I had to change and adjust my length of pull via the large backstrap in order to use the stock factory trigger in the way that I wanted to. So there's always going to be a concession. The backstraps themselves don't really change the feel, truth be told. I don't really like the large backstrap because it makes this weird palm swell that pushes my left hand off of the gun, which I don't like. So for me, going back to the medium was actually advantageous. So that pretty much gives an overview of what this trigger is all about, what the design intent was. It's very, very, very functional in its design. All of the safeties are still intact. It does still have this trigger blade safety there that does work. It's not obtrusive. It's not the best thing in the world. I don't really like trigger blade safeties because I'm kind of spoiled by double action, single action guns. But again, as it stands, this is going to be a very shootable package, and I can't wait to get out and put some rounds through it. My schedule right now is a little bit hectic. I don't know how much time I'm going to have, but rest assured, this thing is going to be shot. It's going to be shot a lot. So to wrap this up, if there's anything that you guys really want to see, anything in particular, that I haven't kind of outlined in my prospectus, so to speak, by all means, please ask. I will do my best to get those together for you, and we will make this thing dance. So in closing, this is the flat-faced forward-sitting trigger kit from Apex Tactical Specialties. And really, I'm not one to say wow, but wow.